The settlement to pay college players directly from schools has put pen to paper this week as a part of the House versus NCAA case that's been ongoing for the last couple years. And we're learning a whole lot more about how exactly those players are going to get paid, not only from the schools, but new things that are going to be put into NIL going forward. One of those new things is the NIL Go platform, which is a platform run by the accounting firm Deloitte, which assesses the legitimacy of NIL deals above $600 based on market value, which begs the question, what is market value for an NIL deal? The Sports Illustrated article I read talked about the difference between a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in LA and a third string lineman in the Midwest. And obviously, those two players offer completely different values, not just to their team and to their school, but any advertisers that will be paying these NIL deals. But let's say, that's an easy example, but let's say that quarterback, before they got into college, was being recruited by both USC and Purdue at the same time. Can those two schools offer that same player, or can advertisers attached to those two schools offer that same player the same deal at the same time? Or are we moving away from being able to offer NIL deals as a part of recruiting entirely, which it kind of seems like what they want to do, because how can you assess the market value of a deal before it gets signed? So now these teams, or however they've allowed them to recruit for these last 2-3 years as NIL has been a part of the picture, they have to completely change that and wait until they get a player to the school until they can offer an NIL deal. That's not going to happen. One of the things that Greg McElroy was talking about, which actually is what kind of tipped me off to this even happening, is that this is introducing another reason, after we've gotten rid of it, another reason for players to get paid under the table. And that offers so many more legal consequences than we've had in these last 2 years. Yeah, maybe it's been a little bit of a shit show in how players have been played, how they've been able to go out and find deals from other schools, the player movement, and all those kind of things. But that has not been a problem of how much a player is getting paid from a particular school. That is not the issue. The issue is the lack of guardrails around player movement, the lack of transparency in these deals that has allowed, and the lack of signing contracts that has allowed those things to happen. This NIL Go platform only solves really one part of that, or maybe two parts of that, which is transparency and contract signing. But why does a third-party accounting firm get to be the arbiter of what a player is worth to a particular school at a particular time? More importantly, why are we still trying to avoid this pay-for-play thing in the era after House versus NCAA, which we are in now? We are now in the revenue-sharing era of college sports. And that means that players will be recruited based on their revenue sharing. It can't be avoided that they will be recruited via their revenue sharing. So why are we using that to then replace what's been going on with NIL and say that you cannot pay for play? What's the sense in that? I understand that there is some sort of trying to level the playing field and trying to add transparency to NIL. But this does not level the playing field in any way, because a player is going to be more valuable at a bigger school. They're just going to be more valuable at a bigger school. That's how it's going to be. Maybe you can make an argument that a 4-star going into USC as a backup is going to be less valuable, and we're going to keep using USC because that's what keeps coming to mind, is going to be less valuable than if they were to go to Texas Tech as a starter, right? They're going to get more views at Texas Tech than they will at USC as a backup. So there's that element of it. But is that going to be put into the platform, or is it purely that this 4-star player that has ties to USC, that has ties to Southern California, is going to be more valuable in Los Angeles because of the economy there, because of the touch with advertisers, because of their standing in Southern California? Is that going to say that is it only going to take into account that he will be more valuable to advertisers in Southern California than he will be in Lubbock? Because that then cuts it down to 30 teams that are able to put out big NIL deals. And there's plenty to be said about how it's going to affect smaller schools, how it's going to limit the amount of money that players can make, how it's not going to pass any kind of lawsuit that's inevitably going to be put, as soon as this is put into practice, inevitably there is going to be a case that's headed directly for the Supreme Court to knock this down, because they are limiting the amount of money players can make via NIL, which is exactly what the Ed O'Banion case was about. This is the NCAA in some roundabout way. This is the College Sports Commission, which they put in some roundabout way, finding a way to limit the amount of money that players can make based on whatever arbitrary market value this accounting firm wants to come out with. It's never going to pass. Even though all of those things can go into why this shouldn't be, the number one reason why this should not be used and why it shouldn't even be a conversation is because we are in the revenue sharing era of college sports. We are in the pay for play era of college sports. Let's say, think about Dwight Howard when he was on the Lakers and he became a free agent, and talking about him going to LA or Houston or whatever. Do you think that the Rockets were not going out and telling him, or the Lakers more specifically, were not going out and telling him, hey, we can get you deals with Nike. We can get you deals with anybody in LA. We can get you movie deals. Like, we can only pay you this much, but we can get you all these other deals. Do you think that that should be limited? Do you think that if they're able to procure more money for a particular player because of their value to the program, not because of their value to KFC or value to fucking Dr. Pepper, but their value to the program and their aims as a college football program, as a college football team, as an athletic department, should be a part of the market value? Do you think that someone should be able to come in and tell Nebraska that it's not, they don't offer Dylan Raiola the same market value that Georgia does? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that someone is coming in and saying, this 5-star quarterback that you are going to get, and it's going to change the trajectory of your program, you cannot compete with Georgia because Atlanta makes more money than Lincoln, Nebraska? Can you imagine that? And that's what we're going to. And it's all around this, the auspices of, we're still amateurs. They're still amateurs. What the fuck are we talking about? We have been seeing millions and millions and millions of dollars being paid out. And we're going to put that back in the bag because now the schools have some kind of budgetary part that is going to go to the players directly. Now they cannot use these other resources that they would have as a school to pay these players. That's never going to happen. And now you're going to get schools and kids in trouble because they're not going to follow those rules, because they can't follow those rules, because if they follow those rules, they will go down by the wayside, and the only schools that will be able to pay players out are going to be Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, Texas. Like, the top of the top revenue schools are the only ones that are going to be able to actually pay out from their whole $20.5 million and then be able to actually find other NIL deals. All these other schools are going to get in so much trouble because they put this stupid fucking platform in based on market value for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. Money is a big part, maybe the only part of college sports. And it's been that way going back to the fucking Bowl Commission in the 90s. Going back to BCS in the 90s and 2000s. What's the college football playoff about? What's expanding to 12 teams? What's expanding to eventually 16, 20 teams about? More and more money for all parties involved in college football. And they're still trying to limit the amount of money and trying to find different ways to move away from collective bargaining and move away from actually treating student athletes as employees in the face of a Supreme Court ruling that essentially calls student athletes employees. What are we doing? It's so ass backwards what they have going on and their understanding of how everybody sees this. And you have stupid fucking people out there like fucking Paul Finebaum, who's out here carrying the water for SEC schools, carrying the water for the fucking NCAA, which it has no relevance to college football anymore. Absolutely zero relevance to college football anymore. And Paul Finebaum's out here saying that because players are getting paid directly from schools, that this has had no relevance to, or has no recognition to what he grew up watching. Paul Finebaum, you're 70 years old. Nobody fucking cares about what you grew up watching. We're not watching the Andy Griffith Show anymore, okay? We're not watching fucking I Love Lucy anymore, all right? And nothing on TV has any resemblance to that now either. The NFL has no resemblance to what you were watching when you were a kid, all right? So shut up and go away. You have no valid opinions. Zero. And the thought process that you and a bunch of other people have about their needing to not be money in college sports is stupid. Paul Finebaum, you've made millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars off of talking about college sports for 50 years. And you're going to say that this is ruining college sports. Let's talk about the conference that you support and the conference on the other side of the country that has found a way to gobble up every meaningful brand in the country based on money to find bigger and bigger deals that you are benefiting from. The SEC network is benefiting you. The big games on ABC and ESPN are benefiting you. The college football playoff is benefiting you. And you're going to tell these players that make that all happen that they should not take any money, that they should not be able to take any money, or that there should be limits on how much money that they can make outside of the sport or even within the sport. If you want there to be limits, make them employees, put a salary cap in, and make the limits that way. Otherwise, get the fuck out of the way. There's money to be made. Get the fuck out of the way. Now you're gonna say that Nike can't pay a player to wear their shoes. You're gonna say that Caleb Williams in college or Arch Manning more likely can't get a deal from Nike when Nike's gonna make tons of money off of them. They cannot. Now that deal has to go into NIL, and Deloitte has to decide whether that's valuable or not. Nike, they know better than Nike. They know better than University of Texas what Arch Manning's value is. Get the fuck out of here. This is some bullshit. This is stupidity. And it's going to be allowed to go through because there's all these different things happening. We're thinking the house, the NCAA comes in. Now they're paying out $2.8 billion to these players, $20 million a season. We think, oh, wow, we're really moving forward. And then they sneak in this NIL Go platform. They sneak in the College Sports Commission, which is going to find ways to carry water for the conferences that want to pay the players as little as possible, that want to limit the amount of ways that players can go and make money outside of their conferences, outside of the big conferences, and continue to funnel players to the biggest schools so that they can get bigger media rights contracts and all this kind of stuff, and limit the amount of money that they have to pay out to get those players. This is bullshit. And it's not going to be talked about in the way that it needs to be talked about by the people that have the biggest platforms, because they are making money off of this whole bargain, off of this whole devil's bargain. And we all are going to continue to watch because we love college football, we love our schools, we love our teams, and we're going to continue to take one step forward and two step back and continue to make people rich that have screwed this whole thing up over and over and over again. Thanks for watching that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you made it this far, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you think that I'm wrong about the NIL Go platform and that it's a good thing for college football? Do you think that they should make any other changes, like potentially contract to schools or any kind of guardrails whatsoever to the transfer portal? And where do conferences come in this? Where do schools jumping from conference to conference fall into the desecration of college sports versus NIL deals? If you want to watch more videos, I do have those for you. Last week, I put out a video about a potential new super conference with Oregon, Notre Dame, and Texas. So check that out. See my idea there. I got my most popular video up here about the perfect Power 5 conference realignment. We will have another one of these big conference realignment videos as we get closer to College Football 26. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, I got my subscribe link here, and we'll check you next time. See ya!